Hey everybody, welcome to my very basic guide on fisting where you learn to master yourself to master the enemy. And what better way to sharpen your fist than by blooding them on the skulls of your enemies and hopefully giving them concussions for a turn as well. Monks get a lot of powerful synergistic abilities in their base class with things like unarmored defense, unarmored movement, martial arts, flurry of blows, and setting strike, making up the core mechanical abilities that the monk heavily rely on. There are also a number of Kung Fu utility features that monks get, with Step of the Wind allowing you to jump farther, Slow Fall making sure your legs don't break, and Deflect missiles potentially allowing you to grab a projectile and throwing it back at the enemy, all being very stylish abilities that might save your life as well. However, this video is specifically about mastering the art of poking things until they expire with the Way of the Long Death as your monastic tradition. Your first subclass feature comes right away at level 3, manifesting as your Touch of Death, allowing you to suck out the life force of creatures you kill. When you drop an enemy within 5 feet of you to 0 hit points, you get temporary hit points equal to your wisdom modifier plus monk level. This is a pretty nice passive ability to have, even though temporary hit points do not stack. It does give monks an extra layer of tankiness that allows them to be more confident in the front lines, giving them more staying power in situations where they can utilize their mobility as well. Touch of Death is also not limited to being a once per turn or once per round ability, meaning you can regain your temporary hit points by killing an enemy on an attack of opportunity as your reaction, and you can also potentially kill something, take damage, and then kill another thing to regain your temporary hit points multiple times in one turn. So overall, I think Touch of Death is a pretty decent 3rd level ability that gives the Long Death monks the ability to deal with hordes of enemies easier, which is generally a weakness in monks. At level 6, we become pretty spooky with Hour of Reaping, allowing us to use our action to scare every creature within 30 feet that can see you. If they fail their wisdom saving throw, they get the frightened condition from you until the end of your next turn. This is an indiscriminate feature that hurts enemies and allies alike, so be careful of your positioning when using Hour of Reaping. Your spookiness also costs you an action, which kinda sucks for the monk, since you rely on your action attack in order to trigger your flurry of blows and stunning strikes. However, Hour of Reaping doesn't cost ki in order to use, and it is not a limited feature, meaning you can spam this every turn if you want. Hour of Reaping is another interesting ability to consider when fighting in a large group of enemies, since Frightened is a powerful condition to inflict early on in a fight, but losing your action for something that might not do anything if the enemy has good wisdom modifiers or just rolled well can be pretty nasty. So all in all, I think Hour of Reaping is a balanced ability that just adds more utility for the monk to meditate over. And now it's time to talk about the 11th level monastic tradition feature known as Mastery of Death, which is, in my opinion, a game-changing subclass feature that makes you near unkillable. When you drop to 0 hit points, you can expend 1 ki point to have 1 hit point instead. This doesn't cost you an action or a reaction or a bonus action. This goes off whenever you are reduced to 0 hit points. Just make sure you have spare ki lying around. Mastery of Death is powerful for a wide multitude of reasons, the chief one being that D&D 5th edition makes no distinctions between the abilities of someone who is on their last legs and someone who is completely healthy. This basically means as long as you are not incapacitated, you operate at full strength. This is huge as you get to keep on hitting enemies, potentially stunning them, and it maintains your board presence by preventing the enemies from walking over your limp body. This ability allows your healers to focus on other teammates more while you distract the enemy from potentially attacking your squishier friends. Even if the enemy has multiple smaller attacks that can drain your ki reserves quickly, it is important to keep in mind that every time an enemy chooses to attack a monk instead of your backline, that's a good thing, especially since monks usually have high armor class. Obviously, the main weakness is that you'll run out of ki eventually, but in Dungeons & Dragons, the battles are so fast that being able to survive 1 or 2 more turns is the difference between a team wipe or total victory. It really is that important. And finally, we come to our capstone ability at level 17. We get Touch of the Long Death, giving us the touch that deals 2d10 necrotic damage per ki point that we put into our Long Death finger from a scale of 1 to 10. And they take half as much damage if they succeed on their Constitution saving throw. This is, unfortunately, the poor man's Quivering Palm from the Way of the Open Hand subclass. If you compare the 2 capstone abilities, we can easily see that at 3 ki points, the enemy that succeeds on their Constitution saving throw for the Quivering Palm takes a whopping 10d10 damage, whereas the death-touched enemy takes a measly 6d10 damage if they fail their Constitution saving throw, and half as much on a successful save. Not only that, but Quivering Palm gets the proc off of an unarmed strike, whilst the Touch of the Long Death requires you to use your action to touch the enemy in order to get its effect. Remember that at level 17, your unarmed strikes do 1d10 damage apiece. Touch of the Long Death is not terrible by itself, but it is inefficient with your ki points. You would rather spend them on Flurry of Blows, Stunning Strikes, or Mastery of Death, or anything else for that matter. But you know what, I think Mastery of Death and the base monk class more than makes up for its lackluster finale, and maybe the 11th level feature is what made the developers think they had to nerf the Long Death's capstone ability in the first place. And with all that out of the way, my very basic guide on the Way of the Long Death is basically concluded. Now, you too can be an edgy old man who espouses how death is inevitable in life and is necessary for balance or whatever. You know, you get to punch things to bloody pulps, that's why you play monk, right? As always, I hope that anyone who happens to watch my stuff enjoys what I create as much as I enjoyed creating in the first place. I hope to see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye for now.